Welcome to Virtual Lunch in the Exhibit Marketers Cafe. I'm your host, Marlis Arnold, and welcome back. If you are one of our regulars or if you are a first timer, welcome. We always love to have new people here. So I'm going to just put up in the banner, in the little ticker here. So just go ahead and introduce yourself in the comments, and we'll be able to see who is joining us today. So we got a great guest coming up. We've actually got two guests today. So we're going to have two different segments here, but I want to go through some links and ideas and tips here real quick before we get started. The first thing I want to share, this is just kind of fun. I came across this. It's a new game that just came out this year for all of those of us who have been missing flying around the country. It's called the Frequent Flyer game, and it's kind of clever. It's you rack up frequent flyer miles, and then you could turn them in for first class seats. And the whole idea is to try to get, fly around the country and land in all the cities and be the first one. So anyway, so Alan is going to share. My husband Alan is behind the scenes as always, so he's going to share that link. I see Gail is here. We need more ways to make virtual events engaging. Yeah, can't stay for all of it. Okay, well, yeah, that's the great thing about replays, Gail, is you can always catch it later. So we're glad you're here for at least part of today. And we are definitely going to talk about engaging virtual events. So there is the link. You can go watch a little short video about how the frequent flyer game works. But anyway, so if you're looking for holiday ideas, there you go. All right. And I should say that all of these links are up if you're watching it on YouTube, the links are already there in the description. You can just click to see more. And then if you're watching on LinkedIn, they're going to pop up in the comments as we go along. All right. The next thing is an article by Sam Horn. And if you don't follow her, I think you really should check her out. She's really fascinating. She's written several books. One of my favorite is called Pop. It's about how to more creatively name things or describe things. I know one of Alan's favorites that she's written is, let's see, Someday is Not a Day of the Week. Yeah. So that's another one of her book titles. But anyway, Sam Horn and this is really crazy LinkedIn address, but the latest article she wrote is about what Yappy Hour, you got that right, Yappy, not happy, Yappy Hour could teach us. So she was talking about how it was a really creative idea that a restaurant came up with. Instead of having happy hour, they have Yappy Hour, and they let people bring their pets. So anyway, it's just kind of an interesting way to reframe things and look at things in a different light. So check that out. Next up is, we actually have two links for this particular story. The American Express or AMEX did a pop-up diner for their gold members. And it was kind of interesting. The first link that we're going to share is a slideshow. So you just can see the different pictures of the event. It was really cool. I mean, I love retro diner stuff, the old 50s style, retro look of art and stuff. It was just really clever, all the little details that they worked in. But anyway, so this first one is a link to a slideshow. And then the second one is more of an article that tells a little bit about it. But they had this pop-up diner they did in 4 different cities around the country. And in each city, they partnered with a restaurant to do kind of some fresh takes, some kind of modernized versions of retro favorites. So that was kind of interesting. And then they had this giant gumball machine, only they called it a gold ball machine because, it was the Amex Gold. So they had the little balls, with the prize inside or whatever, that were all gold. So anyway, it was a very clever promotion. So anyway, so check that out, those two different links. The next thing is, anybody remember back in the day, the Google Glass? Anybody have an opportunity to try that out? I know that's one of the things I love about trade shows is you get to discover all these cool things. I tried it out at a trade show one time. I remember getting to watch or getting to put them on and getting to experience an exhibitor's booth through the Google Glass. Basically, they're augmented reality glasses. So unlike virtual reality, it's not, you're not putting goggles on where you're totally immersed, but you're just watching an overlay, basically. So Google Glass never really caught on, although I guess Google hasn't totally given up on it. I think they're revamping it. But anyway, this article is about smart glasses for events. And so now, Apple, Microsoft, there's a lot of different companies that are working on these augmented reality glasses. And so this article talks about some of the different things that are happening and how they might be able to be used in a trade show or conference environment. Some of the things that they mention are like, and I hadn't thought of this one, but it makes so much sense for closed captioning. So somebody can wear these and the closed captioning would just be right there playing in the little screen in the glasses. And then, like I said, having it as an augmented part of your exhibit where you can have something that comes to life when people put on these goggles. So anyway, Gail says she loves a good diner too, with a big old mug of coffee. Yep. I'm sure it wasn't just plain coffee though at these pop-up gold diners. I'm sure they did something special with them. Okay, so next article is McCormick Place. This actually isn't an article. This is a video. McCormick Place is their recovery, and this was done by CBS Chicago. So it was really good to see that I guess you say the mainstream, the popular media is covering this and making this a big story, but talking about how the convention revenues are going to affect this year. They're predicting that McCormick will generate $1.2 billion for the city. So it's good publicity for our industry to see that, the general public is able to see the effect that events and trade shows have on the economy. The next thing is, I just want to share real quick. Let's see. Let me take this down for now. Take this down. And I mentioned this last time. I've set up a buy me a coffee page. So if you do appreciate these virtual lunches, I've provided them now for almost 2 years for no charge. So if you do appreciate, you can contribute by buying me a coffee or tea. I'm not a coffee girl. So, but anyway, the link for that is at the site called Buy Me a Coffee. It's kind of like Patreon, where you can just support creators and show your appreciation. So anyway, anything you choose to contribute is appreciated, but thank you very much. All right, so we are ready for our first guest, which is Mel White from Classic Exhibits. And Mel is going to be sharing with us what's coming up that they're going to be doing next week at EXHIBITORLive in Vegas. So Mel, give us some behind the scenes peeks here.
Yeah, happy to, Marlis, and thank you very much. One of the things that I realized is that last week when I was writing an article about EXHIBITORLive is that it's been almost 3 years since there's been an EXHIBITORLive. It's been 32 months. By the time that show starts, it'll be 32 months. So one of the things we wanted to do at EXHIBITORLive this year is be able to have people participate not only in our booth if they're attending the show, but give them a chance to kind of experience EXHIBITORLive if they were unable to attend. So in the booth, we're at booth number 324. We'll be showing folks some of our newer products like Gravity, Symphony, which is kind of an elegant portable display system, and our light boxes. And all three of those systems are completely toolless systems. And we're also participating with a company called Captello. I have to get their name right. So Captello and their lead retrieval system, they'll be doing a treasure hunt with 10 sponsors in the booth. So you go from booth to booth, in a treasure hunt, and a chance to accumulate points and then win some prizes. I think the top prize is actually about a $7,000 ad package at Exhibitor City News, but there's lots of gift cards, as much as a $250, $200 gift card of your choice that you can earn simply by doing the treasure hunt. In our booth, what we've done is we've added on that, and we actually have a memory match. So if you remember the old concentration game, we had to get the cards and match them all up. We have something very similar in our booth. So you can earn extra points if you just want to take a minute or two and do the memory match. The other thing that we're doing is, again, for those folks who can attend, is Kevin Carty is going to do a live broadcast on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. So for more or less at noon your time. And what he'll do is he'll walk the floor. He'll spend a little time in our booth, but really he's going to walk the floor. He's going to let people see what's happening on the show floor. Talk to some other folks that are regulars at Exhibitor Live, and do about an hour presentation, and just give folks a chance to really kind of vicariously be at Exhibitor Live if they can't be there this year.
Well, and I think that both of those two things that you just mentioned are so important. I love the treasure hunt idea, getting people involved and interacting and having it in different booths around the show floor so that they have to go to different places. So that's a really good thing. I actually did play the memory game online. I did it twice and I got it down to where I was just under a minute. So
wow, that's amazing.
I always did love that game, but anyway, but the live show floor tour I think is so awesome. And I was just telling Mel behind the scenes before we went live that I've only heard from 2 other exhibitors at the show next week that are doing any kind of live broadcast from their booth. So FYI, for anybody who's out there, got a show coming up, do something from your booth, because not everybody is coming. I can't go to Exhibitor Live next week, so I'm going to be watching Kevin's live broadcast. I'm going to really appreciate the fact that I get to see what's going on the show floor. It's something, Mel and I were talking, it's not that hard. You just walk around with your phone. It's not like it's rocket science, but it's something that just really adds a special touch, and I think just says so much to the audience who's watching, because, if they can't be there in person, this is the next best thing. So here is the link for the classic exhibits. I guess you would say all the updates of what's going on next week. So it gives you all the links and how to access the live broadcast and all that good stuff. So Mel, thank you so much. We always love hearing what Classic Exhibits is up to. You guys are always on the cutting edge of things, and I know you're going to have a lot of great fun stuff to show us next week.
Thanks, Marla. I look forward to listening to your speaker today.
All right. Well, we are going to bring him on next. Okay, so let me take that down. So I want to introduce to you our speaker for today. We have Robert Gelb, is the CEO of Hey Summit, an event platform that creators and thought leaders use to run summits, talk series, and event-powered communities. This also, by the way, is the platform that we used last year for the Trailblazer Summit, if you joined us for that. Before Hey Summit, Rob started Kindaba, a privacy-conscious social startup for families, and ran Bus 52, a nonprofit project run from a school bus that featured the production of 100 documentary-style video pieces highlighting people and organizations who were doing inspiring things across America but lacked recognition. He loves to talk impact, summits, startups, converted school buses, or anything Star Trek related. Rob, welcome so much to Virtual Lunch.
Hi, Marlis. Thanks very much for having me.
Well, let's start out. I know a lot of people tend to think that virtual events were something, virtual summits were something new last year. You and I know these have been going on for a long time. And Hey Summit was on the leading edge. I mean, you're not a company that just came out in the last 12 months. I mean, you've been around a while. So tell us a little bit about, why you started Hey Summit and how you've seen the virtual events maybe change over the last 24 months or so.
Yeah, well, I mean, so you're absolutely right. Virtual events have been around for a while, and virtual summits have kind of been a thing since about 2015, at least, in terms of just the naming convention of those. But they've certainly changed and evolved over the last 18 months or so. Certainly, Hey Summit was started as a product to solve a specific need. So Ben, the founder, he wanted to build a virtual summit. He didn't like anything out there. And so he wanted to create something to showcase his brand, to showcase his other business at the time. It went very well, but what would become Hey Summit started off pretty early on as just trying to figure out a way of connecting a whole bunch of Zoom rooms in a way that wouldn't be too complex and easy enough for anyone to be able to do. So from the beginning, we kind of started off trying to make something complex, like a multi-day 30 plus talk, 4,000 attendee summit, something that you wouldn't need to do. You wouldn't need to know, how to code or how to do any advanced technical abilities in order to run. And that's how it started. And we've kind of just been growing since then. In 2019, as in before BC, before COVID, a lot of our customers were mostly using summits with small teams or individually. So our heart has always been with creators and those who don't necessarily have a big, massive budget or a big, massive team to run their event. Through the pandemic, we were fortunate enough to have much larger customers start to use us, but we've always kind of been designed for those small scale creators or independent entrepreneurs, if you will. And I think that the interesting thing about virtual events and how they've changed is what you've seen in terms of the diversity of how someone might want to put these on. We'll probably chat about it later, but every virtual event can be completely different. There's so many wonderful platforms that are out there. There's so many wonderful experiences. There's a lot of rabbit holes, a lot of temptation that you get sucked into. But whether it's online only, hybrid, some sort of companion event to an in-person event, there's a lot of creativity going on, which is pretty fun to see.
Well, and I know that I've definitely seen just about every kind of style and platform and concept I think that's out there over the last year. I've attended so many events, but it is true that what's nice about what virtual events provide is that it can be on whatever scale you want. Like you said, it can be from a small, me putting on a small event all by myself, all the way up to a major conference. And I think sometimes people tend to get kind of blinders on, I think, to where they think of a virtual event has to be this big conference, and it can actually be, like you said, a smaller event. So I'm thinking that, like an exhibitor can put on their own little mini conference, mini summit of, different types of things, different people within, maybe having different customers doing case studies or testimonials and have these different sessions. So it's not something that has to be this big, massive conference. So talk just a little bit about some of the different, I know you've shared with me some of the different creative summit formats that you've seen. What are some of your customers doing with their events?
I think so. So just first off, I wanted to kind of absolutely agree with you 100%. An event, let's get really down to basics. An event is an excuse for you to engage with someone external. What you're doing right now today, this is an event. This is an opportunity for you to engage. And it's an opportunity for someone else to get value by engaging for a specific amount of time. So if you expand that up, I think that a lot of times people do exactly as you say. They assume a virtual summit, that's a big thing. That means it's going to be very intimidating. It's going to be very complex. It needs to be complex, otherwise people won't come. And that's not the case, especially if you're an exhibitor or if you're an event organizer for in-person events. That a one-stop shop or a one-size-fits-all doesn't really exist when it comes to the world of events. So some of the cool things that we've seen have been both in terms of the overall format of the groups of talks, if you want to think of it that way, a conference or a summit or a talk series, things like that, but then also the specific talks themselves. So a couple of examples. One that I really like is a lightning summit. So a lightning summit is it's only 90 minutes long. That's the length of the whole event. And it would involve, let's say, 5 10-minute talks or three to 5 10-minute talks. and then between 3 and 4 15-minute networking sessions, and they just write one after the other. So you're all over in 90 minutes. A 10-minute talk doesn't sound like a very long time, but it's actually a pretty long time if you're wanting to teach one thing. And it's quite exciting. There's a lot of energy involved. You know, you're running against the clock. You're making the clock kind of the enemy of the day. So everyone has to run around and try and get into one session and out of one session. You can have some fun with the networking as well. So lightning summits, we've seen quite a few people do that are good fun and good ways to test out hypotheses. If you're thinking of running like a much larger event around a particular, let's say, subject matter, not really sure, though, how people will react. Will they attend? Running something like a lightning summit is a really good way to do it. Talk series, obviously, are, you know, whether you want to think of them as more like video podcasts or if you already have a community, talk series are a great way to engage with that community. It kind of depends on what you're wanting to do. Are you looking to grow your audience? Are you looking to serve your existing audience? Are you looking to monetize an existing audience? You kind of you get into the Venn diagram of different formats that maybe eke into, you know, courses or eke into, you know, maybe closer to podcasts. Kind of depends on what it is that you want to do. In terms of the talks themselves, we've seen a lot of really innovative stuff, though. So, for example, especially when thinking about from an exhibitor perspective, what we've seen is obviously an exhibitor may be invited to speak. That's the typical, you know, one way that they might be engaged. The other way is offering office hours for exhibitors or for anybody, for guests, for speakers as an add-on or an additional opportunity to take part. Office hours basically is just a Zoom link or whatever platform of choice that you have scheduled out. So if you were running a summit and you wanted to ask me to be available for office hours, you just ask me when I have an hour free. I'll tell you when I have an hour free. You put that on the schedule, and literally all I have to do is hang out in a Zoom room. If nobody shows up, nobody shows up. Doesn't really matter. But if somebody shows up and they want to just ask a few questions, in a more relaxed atmosphere, they're able to do that. That's a great example of something that takes advantage of people's availability. It's a nice added extra, and it allows your attendees to feel special. I've also seen some interesting uses of different tool sets like Upstream. That's a really fun little platform. There's another platform called Stream, and it allows you to create like Clubhouse style sessions. You know, so audio only. One person's on the stage. They can invite other people up, so you can use that, but for a short amount of time. And then obviously all the really cool networking platforms out there like Remo, like Cosmos, or GatherTown, folks like that. We've also seen like we've used TeamFlow as well. That's a really cool one. It's kind of designed for companies, but you're able to create these weird maps, and people can then go around and have a little scavenger hunt. So we've seen people do that as well. So there are a whole bunch of different ways that people are being innovative, and you don't have to have the fanciest new platforms in order to do that. Using Zoom, the creativity that is available using something even like Zoom is pretty impressive. And happy to kind of talk about that if it's useful.
Yeah, well, like you said, there's so many. I mean, probably half the platforms you named I hadn't heard of yet.
Great.
I thought I had been. I thought I'd been exposed to most of them, but yeah, I mean, they're just, it's unlimited, the options that are out there right now and the creativity that people can do. Talk a little bit about, I love how you've shared some ideas about getting your speakers involved in the whole process, that it's more than just having them speak, that it's having them as promotional partners and same thing for your exhibitors too, but talk a little bit about some of the creative ways to develop that.
So engagement, I mean, in general, for all events, you know, you want this to happen, but especially for online events, speakers, partners, what have you, they often are not only serving your audience, they are also a really effective way of gaining the audience in the first place. And I think that one of the things that that event organizers sometimes forget, or maybe they feel a little bit awkward about, is having that conversation with speakers or potential sponsors or exhibitors about what their responsibilities might be as part of the kind of understanding of joining this event. Yes, we want your expertise, but we also want you to commit to share information about this event in a very specific way. And the best way to do that is to allow it to be speaker or partner driven, and engaging them and allowing them to tell you exactly what it is that they're willing to do at the very, very beginning. And then your job is to facilitate them and help them be successful at doing that thing, right? Maybe it's you've gotten them to say, oh yeah, I'm happy to send out emails, maybe 3 or 4 emails. Okay, great. You can then help them by writing those emails or writing examples of those emails for them to review beforehand, and then checking in with them to see if they're if they're running into any problems. If you're dealing with a speaker that doesn't have a lot of bandwidth, maybe you want to schedule time and just record their video so that their video is actually recorded, but have them live on the chat so that they're able to be engaged with their audience, but they don't necessarily need to be worrying about their Zoom or their connectivity, at the time. That's a common thing. The other thing that I'd suggest, especially when thinking about, maybe we'll talk about this a bit more, in-person events, trying to look at your value return from an exhibitor standpoint for an in-person event versus an online event. They're very different things. And I don't think people should necessarily be thinking like, we're going to have a virtual booth and that's going to be the end. I don't know if anybody has experienced virtual booth platforms. Personally, I'm not a fan. I don't think they work particularly well. And most of the reason why I don't think they work particularly well is that the attendee persona and the attendee mechanic is just completely different on it for an online event versus an in-person event. You're dealing with a device in front of you in your computer that is the ultimate distraction machine. And unlike an in-person event, you're talking about going to a live trade show. You are mentally committing yourself to like a week or 3 days where you're probably not going to get any other work done. And the mission is to find people and talk to people and try things out as much as possible. But you've basically written off that week.
Right.
That's not the case when it's an online event. You might be thinking about that, but it's also the same device that you have your emails coming in to. It's also the same device that is going to tell you about those recurring meetings. And it doesn't give you as much of an excuse to say, oh, I'm not going to be making those meetings today because I have an online event to go to. So when thinking about engagement for online events, especially if you're an exhibitor, I would encourage people to think about it from a digital marketing standpoint rather than an event standpoint. And what I mean by that is just, if you were to create an advertisement or an advertisement, what are you looking for? Yeah, you're looking for impressions, you're looking for conversion, you're looking for total size of audience, but you're looking for opportunities to get in front of an audience. It's not necessarily the same thing though as exhibitors. Maybe we'll go into that, but like there are a few tricks to how you might position that and how you might be engaging with them, with your exhibitors and working with them to see what their value is.
Well, and you said so many things there. I mean, we could do a whole series of talks on all of these things, but a couple things I want to point out is you were talking about giving your speakers and your exhibitors promotional tools. That's one of the things that I like about Hey Summit is you guys have that capability of having the speaker graphics, promo graphics and things that they have this whole speaker kit that they can get access to and use that to promote. The other thing you talked about was exhibitors can't just expect their booth is going to do the work for them. And that's one of the things I have been trying to scream from the rooftops over the last year and a half is that there's nobody wandering the aisles in virtual. I mean, you're not going to have people just stumble onto your booth. You've got to promote it. And I think that what you talked about, having the exhibitors do sessions and interacting and having the, different types of engagement ideas, that's so important. Well, just like Mel was talking about what Classic's going to do with their, their virtual walk around next week or their scavenger hunt, having different kinds of things that you can invite people into, that's not just a hey, stop by and look at my virtual booth page, because that's just not exciting.
You also just need to think like what are the mechanics at play here, and it's not to say that like you can't have a series of booths, but there needs to be a mission. Right. There needs to be a reason why. So like for example, for instance, when people ask us, how do I do networking really effectively online? I have a networking hall and nobody uses it, or I have a community and nobody uses it. What's going on? The challenge is if I don't know you from Adam, and I go into your networking hub at some random time, and I don't see like constant communication, I'm gonna think it's dead, or I'm gonna think, oh, it's not ready yet, or whatever. It's so much more challenging to make those maybe those happenstance interactions happen without you just articulating or organizing around that. So what I would encourage people to do is manage that experience a little bit tighter when you're thinking of online events. So like, don't have the networking session open all the time. Have networking only scheduled for a half hour.
Exactly.
I guarantee, leave it open afterwards, right? Like,
right.
You don't need to end it after a half hour, but demand that people actually show up at a particular time so that you can provide them the experience that you want, rather than the experience that they might, receive if they're accessing it at a time or a place that doesn't necessarily work for everybody else. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. Yeah, have it an actual scheduled activity so that people, people are headed there, just like you would in a face-to-face environment where people are going to actually head to the after hours reception.
Exactly.
Guide them towards. And actually, I just want to throw out, if anybody didn't see our presentation or didn't check out our presentation we did earlier this fall with Amanda about creative networking ideas, I encourage you to go check that out. Look for that in the archives. If you're listening to this on the Trade Show Insights podcast, you can just do a quick search for networking and it'll pop up for you. I do want to just, before we have some final thoughts from Rob, I do want to just share, first of all, a little bit of a disclaimer that I am not only a happy customer of Hey Summit, I'm also an affiliate. So Alan is going to put up the link for my affiliate link so you can go check Hey Summit out. But I do want to tell you that if anybody does go use my link and decides to sign up as a client for Hey Summit, I have a special, I will give you a copy of my virtual event strategic planner so that you can have that to walk through and plan your event. So it walks you through everything from setting your goals to speaker management to exhibitor management, promotions, all those things. So anyway, that's just my little perk that I throw in if you decide to use my link to sign up. So just wanted to put that out there.
It's a great bonus.
Thanks. Rob, share with us just what are some final thoughts? What are, like I said, I know we could do probably 2 or 3 sessions with you, but what are some final thoughts, something maybe that we haven't talked about that you think is really important for people to know with virtual events?
I think one thing that I impart is to, again, try and get back to what is it that you're trying to accomplish with an online event. If you're thinking about a hybrid event, try and give it a little bit more thought than literally just, we need to live stream everything just to make sure that everything is available. Treat your audiences differently because they're different. Their mission for coming, their reason for coming, the way in which they will be served best might be different depending on if you're doing it kind of online only, a hybrid, or an in-person event. So when you think about the attendee and you make sure that the attendee is first, it actually means that you're able to more simply make decisions about whether or not a certain direction makes sense, or a certain platform makes sense, or a certain activity makes sense. You shouldn't really be doing things just to be able to say that you're doing them, because that's kind of the definition of like wasted energy and wasted time, both for you and for the organization. The last thing I'd kind of leave with is just because you haven't done something doesn't mean it's going to be impossible. And I think a lot of folks see words like summit and they think that's a big deal. And absolutely, it should be a big deal, but a big deal to your attendees, not necessarily for you. So I think that there are some tactics and approaches for you to be able to, I think the average number of people that attend any one event on Hey Summit is about 2,400 people. So that includes some events that are 70,000, that includes some events that are 100, right? But 2,500 people. The average team size on Hey Summit is 2. So you're able to create a lot, and you're able to do a lot with not a lot of time or expertise. If you're using the right tool set, if you know what it is that you want to achieve, and if you're smart with making sure that you're productive with the content that you're creating and that you're managing. So give it a go. Think about your attendee persona, fundamentally, and try not to worry too much about taking on more than you can chew before you've thought through it and given it a chance.
Yeah, and it's true. The audience size doesn't depend on the amount of work. I mean, you can put the same amount of work in for a summit, for 100 as you can for a summit of 2,500 attendees, because
a lot of times more.
Yeah. And the thing is that it's managing those details, like we talked about, of getting the speakers on board, getting the promotions done, just organizing it all. But it doesn't necessarily scale up, that it's harder if you have a bigger audience. So I think that's what people need to understand, is you can kind of adjust it to whatever size and whatever scale you want. Like you said, you can do a 90-minute summit, or you can do a 5-day summit. So there's a lot of variables in there. I just want to remind everybody again, the link is exhibitmarketerscafe.com/Hey Summit. Nice and easy. So you can go check that out, learn a lot more about what Hey Summit has to offer. I'm a fan. Like I said, it was a great tool I used last year for the Trailblazer Summit, and I look forward to using again for future summits when I ramp myself up for the next one. So Rob, thank you so much for being a part of Virtual Lunch today. I really appreciate you being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And I want to remind everybody, we will be back in 2 weeks with our next guest on Tuesday, same time, same place. Join us for another great guest on Virtual Lunch. And until then, go out there and have a great couple of weeks. Bye.